As I walked to work, I couldn't help but think about the conversation my wife had brought up at dinner the night before. This is not the first time we have discussed such topics, but lately it seemed to be on her mind more and more, and I wondered why it had become so important to her. She prompted me to remember how many women I had been involved with before we committed ourselves exclusively to each other. She also wanted to know if I still had any fantasies about my past partners, or if I ever thought about them during our intimate relationship. After 5 years of marriage, the simple answer is that my wife and I built a relationship based on trust, respect, love, intimacy, and friendship, even if it wasn't perfect. I believe that these elements were important to any successful relationship, and I assumed that Molly shared the same. It felt like we were living the dream. A steady income, a strong marriage, a beautiful home, the means to relax, and the enjoyment of fine food, wine, and entertainment. I'm William Harrison, but my friends call me Billy. My wife's name is Molly. As a child, I kept in shape, playing soccer and hockey year-round and devoting time to weightlifting. I now keep fit by running and being active in an adult soccer league, occasionally playing pond hockey. My beloved wife, Molly, with her sparkling eyes, flawless complexion, and lovely lips, had the ability to captivate anyone with her smile and engaging conversation on a wide variety of topics. Her genuine interest in others made her an exceptional listener and impartial advisor. Although her friendly demeanor could sometimes come across as flirtatious or casual, it never bothered me because Molly knew how to keep conversations respectful and appropriate. In my eyes, Molly had an almost perfect personality, the only occasional annoyance being a minor flaw that occasionally led to emotional arguments between us. Although these disagreements rarely turned into full-blown arguments, Molly's unwavering determination once she had made up her mind could make it difficult for me to change her point of view, especially on issues without clear scientific evidence. We both got married shortly after college and only dated during our last 2 years of university. It's safe to say that Molly didn't have much experience in choosing partners before our marriage. In contrast, I led a more adventurous life in high school and the first 2 years of college, exploring relationships with a variety of women. Until I was 19, I considered myself lucky. When Molly asked about my ability to satisfy her, I openly acknowledged the influence of my previous experiences. This revelation made her jealous, as she realized the missed opportunities and all kinds of encounters she didn't have. I worked as a mechanical engineer at Abbott Labs, where I designed and tested injection-molded components for medical devices. My latest hobby is restoring a 2005 Winnebago B-Class van, while Molly has excelled in her CPA career with a coveted position at a leading accounting and consulting firm. Her job provided a steady income with a controlled level of stress, periodically including business trips where she accompanied junior accountants during company audits. These trips ensured that the organization's principles of exceptional customer service and detailed reporting were fully covered and adhered to. Last month, Molly went on several trips with a recent graduate named Andrew, who began a 3-year journey to become a certified public accountant, CPA. This path involved qualifications and rigorous testing. After their first trip, Molly mentioned Andrew briefly, but hasn't thought about him since. Over the course of our lives, I couldn't help but notice subtle changes in Molly's behavior and interactions with me. She became less energetic, sociable, and open in our communication. Also in recent weeks, Molly has been coming home from work later than usual several times. During the passionate moment, Molly passionately undressed me and led me to our bed. During this intimate moment, I felt her desire intensify. After making love, I went downstairs to cook, planning to solve the problem when she joined me in the kitchen. When Molly eventually came downstairs and took her seat, I plucked up the courage to broach the subject that needed discussion. Encouraging Molly to speak her mind first, I assured her of my unwavering love and trust. Molly replied playfully, which added to my anxiety. She kept our conversation from being serious, joking that discussions that began with what we needed to talk about often spelled the end of a marriage. Dismissing my concern, Molly assured me that nothing was wrong. In fact, she believed that what she had to share would bring joy to both of us. Struggling to articulate my thoughts, I continued to express my concern about the changes in our relationship. Molly interrupted, referring to our recent intimate encounter and asking why I felt this way. I clarified that this was not what I meant, but my anxiety persisted. As Molly brought up our hot moment, I couldn't help but ask what made me so passionate that she practically tore my clothes off. Molly's demeanor instantly changed, showing tension, worry, and guilt. She defended herself by saying that if I wasn't satisfied with her strong attraction to me, maybe I should solve this problem myself. After noticing this change, I questioned Molly about it, expressing my observations of her anxiety and guilt, as well as her defensiveness. I encouraged her to acknowledge this and asked her to be honest, asking her to tell me what was really going on. I emphasized the importance of honesty and clarity. Molly's tone softened as she apologized, explaining that she didn't mean to react that way. She expressed the need to share what was happening, emphasizing her boundless love for me and the importance of our life together. During our conversation, Molly spoke candidly, her tone filled with confidence and tenderness. Expressing my heightened concern, I asked if she was cheating on me, fearing the worst. Molly, looking hurt but determined, denied any betrayal of trust or infidelity. She assured me of her respect for me and our relationship. Despite my anxiety, Molly encouraged me to listen without making hasty judgments. She explained her intention to discuss something important and emphasized the importance of open conversation. Molly reiterated her commitment to our relationship, expressing her desire to create a future together, have children, grow old as partners, and be with me for life. She prepared me for the task of understanding what she was about to reveal, asking me to listen carefully and consider the whole context. Molly clarified that it was about Andre, her colleague, with whom she went on business trips. Along with those trips, she's had lunch, attended happy hours, and even had dinner with him last week. Molly has been adamant that she has not cheated or had a romantic relationship. She admitted her actions, but insisted that it wasn't cheating on me. I want to emphasize that I really want you to listen to me. And I apologize if my previous statements came across as contradictory, Molly said. You're right. I crossed the line by spending time with Andrew without telling you. However, I want to assure you that I don't love him. We had a flirtation that seemed innocent at first, but gradually became more questionable. Everything changed when he expressed his desire for a physical relationship. Even though I'm 7 years younger, incredibly fit, and very beautiful, she continued, I needed him to understand that my feelings for him were passion, not love. In a fit of anger, I confronted him, asking if he was leaving me, if he loved him, or if they were already close. He calmed me down by saying that he wanted to emphasize again that he had not had an intimate relationship with Andrew or anyone else, Molly explained. He clarified that this was part of the problem and asked me to listen. He stressed that only I love. Andre is younger, and I could never develop romantic feelings for him. However, I had limited experience before meeting you. Sometimes I feel like I missed out on certain experiences you had before we became a couple. The thought that this young man, who I'm definitely attracted to, wants to be intimate with me, Molly continued. Andrew and I flirted at work today, which may partly explain why I came home so desperate for your love. She noticed my reaction as my pulse quickened and was quick to clarify, Billy, I didn't express it properly. I love you, and our intimate relationship means more to me than anything else. But I found it hard to shake my crush on Andrew and made the difficult decision to act on it and get intimate with him as a one-time experience before we fully commit to building our future together. I shared my need to have one last experience with another man, believing that I deserved it, Molly admitted. She asked for understanding and permission, wanting to convey her sincerity, and never wanting to cheat and respecting our relationship. She discussed it openly and asked for my consent, while making it clear that she had already made up her mind about what to do next. Molly was surprised by the anger in my eyes as I considered her words. In response, she boldly declared that she loves only me. She expressed her desire to spend the rest of her life married to me and grow old together, making it clear that what she felt for another man was not love. Trying to come to terms with the situation, I emphasized that I understood her point of view, seeing it as a one-time opportunity to fulfill wishes and gain experience. However, I made it clear that I felt deeply offended by her request and the implication that my consent was a test of my love. It was hard for me to see how agreeing to something beyond our commitments could restore or strengthen our relationship. A mixture of hurt and anger reflected in my eyes as I rose from the table. It was obvious that Molly felt the consequences of her words. I hoped that at this point she would consider whether her actions could destroy our marriage and the bond that held us together. I needed her to understand the significance of her request and the possible consequences it had on our relationship. I admitted that when she discovered my emotional connection with one of her colleagues, she felt betrayed. Conversations and walks that resembled intimacy could be seen as a form of infidelity. I recognized the pain and distrust it brought to our relationship. I tried to make it clear that I was not physically intimate with this person, admitted to a few exchanges of kisses after happy hour, and admitted that this did not excuse my behavior. I understood the mistrust and hurt in his response and sincerely apologized for the pain I had caused him. Although I have always believed in his unwavering loyalty and faithfulness, I admit that when I learned of his actions, I shattered that belief. In response, I bitterly replied, "Okay, Molly, maybe I'll look for my nonsensical romance, and we'll see if you keep that faith." With that, I stood up abruptly, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Molly called to me in a pleading voice, "Billy, please think and come back. I understand that you may think that this situation could lead to personal growth and allow you to give even more love and attention in the future, but Molly, you are deluding yourself right now. I can't understand how you expect me to accept your betrayal and just put up with it while saying you love me. The truth is, I will never get over that trust gap. If you continue this affair, it means the end of our relationship. Do you understand the seriousness of this?" With those words hanging in the air, I headed for my car, determined to leave us some distance away. Molly urged me to come back, begging Billy, "No, please come back." Anger and pain consumed my thoughts, and I could only stare at her in disbelief before driving off into the night. It was an extraordinary moment of shock and confusion. Seeking solace, I stopped for the night at the Hilton Hotel in a nearby suburb. Trying to escape the hustle and bustle, I spent too much time in the hotel bar, drowning my sorrows in alcohol. Eventually, I went back to my room and collapsed into bed, still reeling from the shock that Molly would find such a situation acceptable. Ignoring her calls and voicemails, I was stunned and unable to understand how she could profess her love for me while insisting on breaking our marriage vows. I was well aware of Molly's stubbornness when she made up her mind, but this was not the time. I thought about giving in and leaving things as they were, but I was afraid it would be a mistake that could destroy our marriage. I had to let her know before the situation became irreversible. However, doubts began to creep in. Was it already too late? Even if I managed to convince her this time, how long would it take for her to act behind my back again? This will surely destroy what remains of trust, respect, and ultimately our marriage. On the other hand, I realized that if I let her continue, I would never see her in the same light. As I weighed my options, doubt and fear clouded my thoughts. If I agreed to her request, how long would it be before she felt the need to seek comfort in another man's arms again? Will she resent me for allowing someone else to fulfill her wishes and not demanding her loyalty only to me? It became clear that there was no good choice, and the feeling of death hung over our relationship. Something inside me told me that our path was already leading to a tragic end. Finally, I made a decision. My only glimmer of hope was to convince her to reconsider and see me for a consultation. Together, perhaps we could uncover the root cause of her desire for intimacy outside of our marriage. With this choice in mind, I've marked Wednesday on the calendar as the day to address this topic and present my arguments. Feeling the heavy burden of pain and sadness, I decided to call in sick to work. As soon as I knew Molly was gone, I went back to our house and threw myself into finishing the unfinished work on the van. Doing physical work provided a temporary relief from the constant mental upheaval. I have successfully installed and connected the solar panel, made sure all the electrical components are working, and filled the water tanks. I knew that with another day of work on the body assembly, the van would be ready for our trip by Thursday. As Molly's return neared, I turned to these tasks, seeking solace in the midst of my heartache. After carefully researching the divorce process, financial issues, and seeking professional guidance, I felt that I had a tentative plan of action for both possible outcomes that lay ahead of me. With a sense of urgency, I looked around our house and made an inventory of my personal possessions, focusing on the items that meant the most to me. Time was of the essence, and I managed to visit the bank before Molly arrived. I acted quickly at the bank, canceling our joint credit card and opening one in my name alone. Similarly, I closed our joint checking account and created an individual account in my name. I decided to use funds from our joint account pay off the mortgage early within the next 2 months. After that, I split the balance in half, writing Molly a check for her share and putting my portion in a personal savings account. Amid mixed emotions, I sought solace in a familiar pub I frequented. There I sipped a beer and ate a hamburger in preparation for my upcoming conversation with Molly. Molly returned home around 6 p.m., and upon seeing me, she immediately expressed her concern and disappointment at my sudden departure. She asked me not to leave without informing her about my well-being. I understand your pain, but I was genuinely concerned for your safety and had to make sure you knew I was okay. Molly, I used to have full faith in the durability and strength of our love. However, recent events have called into question the basis of our relationship. Just a week ago, I couldn't have imagined that you would ask me for permission to have an extramarital affair and carry on as if nothing had happened. It's hard for me to understand how you can profess your love for me, talk about our strong future together, and still ask for my permission to have an extramarital affair. Please know that I do not doubt your love for me, but it is very important to understand that seeking permission does not negate the fact that it is against the promises we made to each other. This remains a breach of trust and our commitment. It is very important to be aware of the seriousness of this situation and the impact it may have on our relationship, both now and in the future. Molly, when we talk about drama and immaturity, what I'm feeling right now far surpasses that. I look at the man I once loved, and I'm not sure if I really know who you are. You're asking me to accept that you love me, but you're also asking me to accept that you're planning an intimate encounter with another man over the weekend, and then going back to our previous status as a couple and as partners. I know deep down that things can never be the same. Our relationship will never go back to what it was before. Think about it, Molly. How would you feel if I got intimate with someone else and then told you it was normal? It wouldn't be fair, and you know it. Yes, I have had experiences with other women in the past, but that does not excuse or make the situation any less painful. I understand that you feel that you have missed various opportunities in your past. Well, I had such experiences. To answer your question, I would say that if I started an affair, I would expect consequences, including the possibility of being asked to leave and the uncertainty of forgiveness. So why should circumstances be any different for you? Why shouldn't I consider asking you to leave? And why do you think it would be easy for me to forgive you? Molly was overcome with emotion, tears welling up in her eyes as she answered. I corrected her by pointing out that her statement was not entirely accurate. I asked if she had already promised to stick to the plan, if she had made a promise to her potential partner. Molly tried to defend herself by insisting that he was not her lover. However, she eventually admitted that she had arranged a trip with her potential partner, which started the next morning and lasted until Sunday evening. After hearing this, I expressed my deep concern and informed her that if she goes through with this, things will not just go back to normal on Monday, and our relationship will not be the same. Molly gasped in response. She went to the kitchen and sat down at the table, begging me not to let this situation destroy our marriage and our life together. She emphasized that I have always been and will be her husband, the one with whom she wants to raise children. Sensing a deep rift between us, I shook my head and softly said, Molly, we're just not on the same page anymore. If everything you said was true, you wouldn't even be thinking about what you have planned for Saturday. It seems that this conversation will not lead to a solution. I want to make it clear that if you go ahead with your plan, our relationship will end. I will be back on Friday evening as previously stated. Molly, please don't ask me to stay when you make choices that jeopardize our marriage. We can't just brush it off. Let's try to find a way out of this difficult situation. I will bring dinner around 7 p.m. on Friday. By the way, what time is Andrew picking you up on Saturday morning, just so I know? Molly replied. I'll have him pick me up at 11 a.m., but understand that you don't have to leave. In fact, I want you to meet him. Anger filled me and I responded, figuring that if I met him, I could ask them both to leave. Instead of reacting with anger, I suggested that she consider expressing gratitude for not completely cutting her out of my life. I urged her to think carefully about her actions before our meeting on Friday, emphasizing the significant damage this situation was doing to our relationship, which she seemed to underestimate. I made it clear that this was a promise I was going to keep. I relayed that if she ends this affair and tells him that she no longer wants to see him now or in the future, and if she commits to going to counseling with me to work on rebuilding our relationship, then there might be a chance for us to recover. But if she doesn't, I'm sure our marriage will be over. Please give me your answer by Friday evening. In the meantime, take some time to honestly think about the consequences of your actions on our lives. With a heavy heart, I turned and left the house, returning to the Hilton Hotel, where I had reserved a room for the night from Wednesday to Thursday. Realizing the urgency of the situation, I contacted my boss and explained the unusual family circumstances that required a week's absence. Despite his reluctance to go into detail, he reluctantly gave me the day off. On Thursday morning after Molly left for work, I returned to the house and began quietly packing my things. I carefully selected items that Molly didn't immediately notice were missing and prepared them for transport into my van. Also, I decided to visit the store to get rid of the clothes I no longer wore and deemed unnecessary for my upcoming trip. I packed up all the tools, sports equipment, and outdoor stuff I didn't have room for and took them to my best friend Tom's house. I also shared a few pen and ink drawings my uncle made, knowing he would appreciate them. As we sat around the table, beers in hand, I explained the situation and discussed the options I thought were available to me. Tom looked at me in disbelief and expressed strong doubts, insisting that Molly would never do such a thing to me. He emphasized how much Molly was in love with me. Tom questioned my confidence in the correctness of my decision, suggesting that there might be something more to Molly's actions that needed understanding. Right now, I feel incredibly lost and unsure. Everything I thought I knew was shattered in 1 week, and Molly seems like a completely different person. Her actions confused me, and I'm trying to make sense of it all. Can't we just forgive and forget? Can't we seek advice and find a way to move forward? I told her that we still have a chance to save our relationship if she stops this thing. But if she does that, I don't see any way to reconciliation. I've done my best to appeal to her reason, but now, on Friday night, I'm hoping that with some love and care, she might be willing to listen to reason. This is really my last chance. It's hard to witness the pain my marriage has caused, especially considering we were once considered the model of a healthy relationship. I will explore all potential avenues for the future. I promised a friend to stay in touch, and as soon as I have a new phone and number, I will contact him. We'll keep each other in the loop. With that in mind, I went to a Verizon store to get a new phone and number. I secured a new phone and number, making sure our current plan was transferred solely to Molly's name. Q. The practice questions were resolved. I returned home and refocused on the van. I completed the rest of my office work and tackled tasks like getting new license plates and renewing my insurance coverage. I then turned my attention to our home computer, carefully deleting all traces of personal emails and documents. I wanted to erase all remnants of my past life from the office. In addition, I wrote a letter informing our family, friends, relatives, and colleagues of Molly's actions and my response to give them an explanation in this difficult situation. If, despite my best efforts, I failed to talk Molly out of her decision, I would have to explain to our family, friends, relatives, and colleagues that she had decided to have an extramarital affair by actively seeking my approval. Despite a change of mind to change her mind, I made it clear that I had warned her that this would end our marriage, but she continued. I never wanted to discuss it, but I wanted people to know the truth about what happened. On Friday, I continued to discuss the situation with a divorce attorney to get advice on the potential outcome of our situation. Given our comparable incomes and no children, I learned that a typical divorce scenario would most likely involve a 50-50 split of all assets. Although it was emotionally difficult, it was necessary to gather this information and prepare for the possibility of trial. While most aspects of the potential divorce settlement seemed relatively straightforward, there was uncertainty about whether Molly would be entitled to half of my 401k retirement plan. Given that Molly had made significant contributions over a long period of time, this account had more than $200,000 in tax-deferred assets. In addition, Molly was in a defined benefit pension plan, which created uncertainty as to its effect on the divorce proceedings. After careful consideration, I've come to the conclusion that I have worked hard to save this money. Rather than risk a 50% loss due to my wife's infidelity, I decided to accept the 40% tax penalty and withdraw the money before the divorce proceedings began. It was a difficult choice, but it provided some control and protection for the financial assets I had worked hard to build up. I decided to put off any financial decisions until the weekend because I still had hope that I could convince Molly to change her mind and put an end to this horrible situation. Despite my best efforts to reason with her, as Friday approached, I felt helpless and uncertain about our future, our marriage, and my love for her. It was all in Molly's hands now, and I could only pray that she made the right choice. I went back to our house and waited anxiously for Molly to come home from work. When she entered the kitchen, her face lit up with excitement, showing how much she missed my presence at home. She thanked me profusely for coming home and said she missed me a lot and couldn't stand me not being with her. She asked me to promise not to leave like that again. I acknowledged her feelings, stating that she was right and that we loved each other, stressing the importance of being together. I suggested she freshen up and take a shower while I prepared to fire up the grill for a lovely dinner together. I mentioned that we should cherish what our marriage meant to us that night. Molly became visibly upset when I mentioned the uncertain future of our relationship. She replied, getting more and more annoyed, and asked me to stop questioning our marriage as it upset her. I sighed, suggesting that we put the conversation on hold for now and focus on the evening. I assured her that we could continue the conversation later. I emphasized the need to focus on the enjoyable part of the evening. I replied, "Sure, Molly, I promise I'll stay with you tonight, and you won't have to worry about me getting upset or leaving." When Molly came back from the shower, I turned to her and couldn't help but express my admiration and sincere praise. She replied with a mischievous smile, indicating her desire to give me an idea of what our next few weeks would be like. Molly told us that she had bought us different outfits and playfully said that it was time to move on to food. She expressed hunger but wished to start with dessert. We quickly started our meal, finishing the main course in a hurry, wanting to savor the sweet finale and approach the next weeks with excitement. Later, I carefully carried Molly upstairs and placed her on the bed after our intimate encounter. She was out of breath and completely satisfied and soon fell asleep. I couldn't bear to see you walk away from me in our once cherished marriage. The wedding rings you left behind symbolize the abandonment of our obligations, the avoidance of the reality of your infidelity in pursuit of a free weekend. I have a hard time understanding how you could believe, without a shred of doubt, that having an affair and then going back to our marriage as if nothing had changed was acceptable. I really cannot understand your train of thought and how breaking our sacred wedding vows can seem acceptable to you. Your actions caused me tremendous humiliation and disrespect in our marriage. To think that a seemingly harmless weekend affair won't affect my feelings for you is a serious misunderstanding. It really meant everything. Your actions have illuminated the vast difference between my love for you and the love you claim to feel, if any. It exposed a huge gap between what I thought I deserved and what I mistakenly believed we shared. You hurt me more than any other experience. You took my love, ripped it from my chest, and trampled it heartlessly. The initial betrayal happened when you started flirting with your lover during dinners and happy hours. Kissing during these encounters reinforced your infidelity, which you mistakenly thought was acceptable. However, the biggest blow to our mutual love was delivered when you assumed that I would agree to your betrayal. How could you believe that you deserved this, and that my love for you would tolerate such a betrayal? I am amazed at how your mind came up with such an idea. In trying to reason with you, I made it clear that our love, marriage, and friendship will never remain intact. Instead, you dismissed my concerns by calling me immature and dramatic. I asked you to stop this weekend affair before it happened. I suggested that you consult a psychologist and make an effort to save our marriage. My words were ignored. Despite being warned that the incredible night of love we shared would be our last if you continued, you chose to ignore me, assuming that I would obediently stay by your side. I don't understand how you believed that I would agree to such betrayal. It's like you never knew me. I trusted you so much that I didn't realize you were capable of this level of destruction. Although I could have physically intervened, I knew that would only breed resentment and slowly destroy our marriage. To believe that this is an isolated case is self-deception. If the experience was unsatisfactory, how long have you been looking for another attraction? And if it was pleasant, how quickly will your imagination make you repeat it? These questions concern me, highlighting the essence of the problem. You can hide infidelity in the future, especially given the devastating consequences we face now. But I am sure that these betrayals will continue, further eroding the fabric of our relationship. The truth is, I can't have a relationship without trust, and your actions have completely broken my trust. I can't imagine loving you again when I'm tormented by the thought of your presence near me or your mind wanders to other lovers. During our intimate moments, it seemed that all the love, respect, trust, and friendship you professed washed away, leaving me with empty promises. I can't muster the strength to forgive you for the pain I've caused you, and I can't imagine ever trusting you or maintaining a friendship. Just as you heartlessly ripped love from my chest, I must erase you from my life. There are practical issues I need to address. I divided our property and covered the mortgage payments for the next 2 months, enclosing a check for your share of our joint accounts. I canceled our joint Verizon account as of Monday, so you will need to set up your own. Insurance policies and joint credit cards were also canceled, and I legally removed my name from the mortgage, preparation of the document on leaving the ownership of the house and transferring it to you. The next morning, Molly woke up at 8:30 a.m., signaling the need to prepare for the day ahead. With Andrew due to pick her up at 11 a.m., Molly's mind was filled with guilt, anxiety, and hidden desire. Despite wondering if anything could top last night's passionate lovemaking, Molly's determination reminded her of the commitment she had made and the need to follow through on her decision. Despite her doubts, Molly decided to go ahead with the planned date, feeling a mixture of emotions and uncertainty about what lay ahead. Expressing her gratitude for the incredible night, Molly expressed her love and gratitude saying, "This is how I envision our future. I love you so much and thank you for last night." When there was no response, Molly focused on finishing her scrambled eggs and refused to eat more. She mentioned that she had to get ready for breakfast with Andrew at 11 a.m. and wanted to keep the appetite for it. Planning to freshen up, shower, and get ready, Molly expressed her need for solitude. I nodded, letting her go about her morning routine without interruption. I bid a heartfelt goodbye before she left for the weekend, expressing my desire to understand the meaning of our love and last night's events. Molly interrupted, urging me to stop, insisting that this was a one-off that wouldn't change our love. Feeling a mixture of anger and sadness, I declared that I would not leave without a proper farewell. Meeting my gaze, Molly's cheeks flushed as she acknowledged our strong bond and envisioned a future filled with growth and strength. Responding with frustration, I expressed my exasperation at her ability to believe such words. Molly's understanding changed as she realized the gravity of my remarks, and tears welled up as she hurried to the bathroom. After a quick shower and a thorough application of makeup, Molly left with her weekend bag, realizing that time was limited. Seeing her prepare to meet another man filled me with immense anger and pain. Molly asked if I was okay, expressing concern, and I struggled to find the words to emphasize my desire for a special celebration of our love. A heavy silence hung in the air as Molly absorbed my words, experiencing deep emotion. She asked me not to see this night as our last night together and encouraged us to look to the future, where we can overcome this problem and become stronger than ever. Molly emphasized the importance of addressing the deeper issues in our relationship and asked me to stop insisting that things were falling apart. Before Molly could answer, a car pulled up and she asked if she should let Andrew in, hoping that his introduction would ease my problems. I firmly rejected the idea, threatening deplorable actions if she let him inside. My words trailed off, revealing the depth of my suffering, leaving Molly in shock. Realizing that further conversation would only escalate the tension, she silently picked up her bag and headed for the door. I sat there deep in thought, realizing that Molly was determined to go ahead with her plans despite my best efforts to prevent the affair from destroying our marriage. After 30 minutes, feeling the need for a change, I started moving the important things into the van. I noticed that Molly's wedding rings were left on the dresser, and with sadness and humility, I carefully put them in my pocket. 2 hours later, I packed all my essentials safely into the van, a tangible reminder of the decision we both had to make. Racked with anger and pain, I wandered around the house in a state of confusion. The wedding album caught my attention, filled with 40 precious photos that capture the memories of our wedding 5 years ago. Unable to contain my frustration, I cut a deep cross through the plastic covering each photo and tossed them into the fireplace. The crackling flames consumed what once symbolized our love. Sitting at the table, my heart heavy with grief and determination, I began to write my last letter to Molly. Molly, this is my farewell message. It's up to you to sell or live on, because this is no longer my home and I won't be coming back. As you can see, I sold the car and opted for a van. After all, I can pawn your wedding rings for gas money. I admit that I acted impulsively in the midst of pain and anger. In a moment of frustration and desperation, I used a box cutter to cut up our wedding album, leaving the scraps scattered in the fireplace. If necessary, burn them. It would symbolize the end of our marriage. I also confessed to sending a letter to our friends, relatives, colleagues, and acquaintances informing them of your decision to continue the affair outside of our marriage. I announced my decision to leave you, giving you a day or two to think about how you wanted to present your side of the story. I strongly recommend taking responsibility for your actions as you move forward in your new life. You can seek any experience and relationship you want, but I urge you to avoid dating married people, as your actions have already caused enough damage to innocent lives. You are free to end our marriage, sell the house, move on, and shape your future. I leave these decisions in your hands because they no longer concern me. If I'm lucky enough to find a woman who truly loves and respects me as I deserve, I will be grateful for this opportunity in my life. Maybe we can discuss a divorce when the time comes. At the moment, I am focused on something else. I decided to quit my job and cash in my 401k. My only plan now is to cut all ties with you and avoid any future encounters. As I drive away, I'll turn left on the road, leaving memories of you in my rearview mirror. Goodbye, Molly. Finally, I started sending the written letter to all our friends, relatives, and acquaintances, setting the mailing for Monday. By then, I should have moved on from my previous life. With one last look, I turned away and walked out the door, hurrying away from the remnants of my past. I drove along the banks of the mighty Mississippi, contemplating my next steps. I decided to follow Molly's path from Minneapolis-St. Paul to the bustling city of New Orleans. Once I reach that destination, I will have to make an important decision, metaphorically speaking, left or right. During the long hours on the road, thoughts of Molly and whether I had made the right choice filled my mind. However, I have come to the conclusion that now is not the time to make immediate decisions about our future. It would be weeks before I could even consider the possibility of friendship, let alone staying married. At that moment, anger overshadowed any thoughts of reconciliation, but I knew there might come a time when my anger would subside and my desire to be with Molly would outweigh the pain of her actions. Only then can I truly appreciate how much more important it is to me to be with her than without her. Molly had to explain to her parents, relatives, and friends her confusing state of mind and the reasons for her decision to have a brief, intimate encounter. She expected it would be difficult for them to understand her train of thought or agree with her point of view. In fact, she had difficulty understanding her own reasoning, let alone explaining it to others. She convinced herself that this novel would have no effect on her emotional state. Aware of the serious challenges that lay ahead for her and us as a couple, I understood that any possible path to reconciliation would require a sincere effort to overcome the difficulties. Molly had to articulate the depth of her new understanding of the devastating impact her actions had on our marriage and the love we once shared. She had to face the harsh reality of her self-centeredness and stupidity in underestimating the importance of loyalty, not only to me, but also to her own sense of integrity. Now realizing the consequences, Molly reached out to my best friend Tom Weekly, desperate for information on my whereabouts. She asked him to give her a sincere apology, expressing his love and remorse. Molly wants me to tell you that she loves you very much, admits her mistakes, and is willing to do anything to make things right if you give her a chance, Tom relayed on her behalf. She promises not to seek a divorce and to remain faithful to our marriage vows, to refrain from romantic relationships while we are married. Week after week, Molly anxiously awaited an answer or phone call, hoping for a reconciliation. But there was no contact because she was hoping for my return. About a month later, an unexpected incident occurred. Andre opened the door and ran into a masked assailant with a police baton. The attacker quickly struck Andre twice, after which he inflicted painful blows on the nose. Before leaving, the attacker emphasized that it is important not to contact married women. After the attack, Andre felt unbearable pain, reminiscent of the consequences of crossing the border. Of course you know who the attacker is. I followed Molly's life, wanting her to suffer as much as I did, maybe even more. Despite Molly's statements that she would wait for me and not be romantically involved, 2 months after I left, she brought another man into our home. It was hardly a friendly meeting. Soon she sold the house and moved into a modest apartment. Dreaming of breast augmentation, she bet on plastic surgery with the money from the sale of the house. Unfortunately, a week later, a blood clot formed, which led to her sudden death. After hearing this tragic news, I did not shed a tear. Have I lost the ability to feel love, anger, or pity for this woman?